Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by green hills and singing streams, there lived a gentle shoemaker named Thomas. Thomas was known for his kindness. He always smiled at neighbors, shared warm bread with hungry children, and mended old shoes for anyone who could not afford to pay. His workshop was small but cozy, filled with the soft smell of leather and pine wood. Yet, even with his good heart and skillful hands, Thomas was becoming poorer each day. Fewer people came to buy shoes, and his savings slowly disappeared. One chilly evening, Thomas looked at his shelves and found only a single piece of leather left. It was just enough to make one pair of shoes. Though he felt worried, he refused to give up. He cut the leather with steady hands, arranged the pieces neatly on the bench, and whispered a hopeful prayer. With a peaceful heart, he blew out the candle and went to bed beside his kind wife, Emma. In the morning, Thomas stepped into his workshop and froze in amazement. On the table stood a pair of shoes so perfect that they seemed to glow in the sunlight. The stitches were tiny and even. The shape was smooth and graceful. Thomas could hardly believe his eyes. Soon, a traveler passed by the shop, saw the shoes, and offered a very generous price for them. With the money, Thomas bought enough leather to make 2 pairs of shoes. That evening, he cut the leather again and laid the pieces out on the bench. He wondered who might have helped him, but he was too tired to stay awake. So he prayed once more and went to sleep. When morning came, 2 pairs of finely crafted shoes were waiting for him. This miracle repeated itself again and again, every night. Thomas prepared the leather every morning. New shoes appeared in its place. The once struggling shoemaker soon found himself earning enough to fill his cupboards with food, buy warm clothes for winter, and repair the roof of his small cottage. Still, a question grew in his heart. Who was helping him with such kindness and talent? One night, when the snow outside sparkled like silver powder, Thomas whispered a plan to Emma. They lit only a tiny candle and hid together inside a large wooden cupboard in the workshop. They tried not to breathe too loudly. The clock ticked slowly. The air grew colder. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, the workshop door fluttered open. 3 tiny elves hurried inside. Each one was no taller than a teapot. They wore leaf green shirts, tiny boots, and cheerful hats that bobbed every time they moved. Their eyes shone with excitement as they danced toward the workbench. They worked with incredible speed. One stitched the leather, one hammered the soles, one polished the shoes until they gleamed like morning dew. Their movements were lively and full of joy. They hummed a merry tune as they worked and giggled each time one of them finished a task. When every pair of shoes was perfect, they joined hands, spun in a happy circle dance, and disappeared into the night. Thomas and Emma stepped out of the cupboard with amazement in their eyes. They felt deeply thankful and wanted to show their gratitude. The next morning, Emma began preparing a feast. She baked sweet berry pies, roasted soft potatoes with herbs, and cooked warm carrot soup that filled the house with a wonderful smell. Thomas set a tiny table with little plates and little cups that he carved himself. They worked all day, excited to surprise their magical friends. When night returned, the elves came again. As soon as they saw the feast, their faces lit up with joy. They clapped their hands and hopped around the table. They knew the shoemaker and his wife had prepared this gift out of pure gratitude. The elves ate happily, laughing and dancing between bites. After the last crumb was gone, they joined hands once more and performed their brightest, most cheerful dance. Then, with a final bow, they skipped out the door. They never returned to the workshop again. Thomas and Emma missed their tiny friends, yet they felt happy knowing the elves had received their thanks. From that day onward, their business continued to grow. People traveled from faraway towns just to buy Thomas's shoes. The couple lived in comfort and shared their good fortune with others. They never forgot the kindness of the elves and made sure to pass the kindness to every neighbor, stranger, and child who needed help. And so, Thomas and Emma lived a long, joyful life, filled with gratitude, generosity, and the warm memory of three tiny friends who changed their fate forever.